Live streaming time.
It is now started live on YouTube.
Praveen sir, have we started?
Yes, sir, started.
Okay, so a very good afternoon to all of you, all the listeners and participants. I, Sachin Lomte, on behalf of Maharashtra Institute of Technology, Aurangabad, extend a hearty welcome for this webinar on impact of global pandemic on engineering. And we are delighted to have the resource person as Ms. Sampada Pachaury. Let me briefly introduce her profile. Her education and industry interface: a silver medalist in BTech program in electronics and communication engineering from Aligarh Muslim University in the year 1993, masters in VLSI design in electrical engineering 1996 from IIT Delhi, having 17 plus years in semiconductor industry working with ST Microelectronics India and Italy, Micron Technologies Incorporations USA, and Sankalp Semiconductors, now HCL Technologies. 2 plus years working in higher education reform as Vice President, Campus Engagement, Electronics Sector Skills Council of India, and North India Head for National ESDM Technology Research Academy, that's NETRA. Moving ahead to her entrepreneur interface, founder, Sharpness Simplified, an initiative to help solve problems with simple solutions, co-founder of iRide2 Reach Sports Private Limited, Fitness and Cycle Coaching Academy, member, Global Industry Advisory Forum, Indo-Universal Collaboration for Engineering Education, IUCEE, coordinator of Student Forum at engineering colleges to catalyze future skills development, conductor of Curiosity Inspired Learning Workshop and outdoor cycling camp for kids, a voluntary teaching associate of Center of Inquiry, District Primary School, Columbia, South Carolina for 2.5 years. And she is also fueled by reading, music, long distance endurance cycling, and dance. A complete person. I extend a hearty welcome, ma'am, and please start with your session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sachin, and everybody in MIT Aurangabad, all the students, all the faculty members, everybody who's watching this session. Thank you for coming forward. This is a very different time, a very unusual time for each one of us. And over the last few weeks of being in lockdown gave me an opportunity to do a lot of reflection and thinking. So based on the background that Sachin has just given, I came to a conclusion that we need to understand more of what we were doing till now and what we should be doing now. Towards the later years, I've dedicated my life towards engineering education and students of engineering. And some of this reflection that I did is perceived to help the students and also institutions in rethinking their measures that they have adopted or should be adopting. Hence, this presentation, I'll be sharing my screen so that everybody can actually see what I have worked upon over the last few weeks of, this lockdown. So once again, a good afternoon. This session is titled Impact of Global Pandemic, which is COVID-19 right now, and how it affects engineering. The focus is on engineering students, engineering colleges and institutions of technology, and engineering in the early years in the industry. Some of the basic questions which are hopping in our mind is, my education preparing me well enough? Is there something that I could do differently so that I survive this pandemic and maybe more pandemics that I may live to see? How is it actually impacting engineering, both in positive and in negative manners? So we are going to try to understand this over the next several minutes. So there are some questions for people who are watching right now. They can use the chat to key in how they feel about this question. If they prefer to, it's totally voluntary. But yeah, these are general questions which are mostly running in everybody's mind. As it, how is it going to change my life in the short term and in the long term? Is my life going to get normal again? And when? How long will it be? Will I have enough jobs available for me to choose after this COVID-19 goes away, considering that the world economy is going down? Will I be able to pursue the higher studies that I had been working so hard? And will I be able to build a secure and stable future for myself, considering what I have learned so far and what new I can learn? So these are basic questions. There may be more, there may be less, some pressing too much. And before I go further, I would like to also speak on the terminology of what my talk is going to cover. So we look at education, something which elevates my intellect. Engineering education is more than that. It helps me to develop an ability so that I can develop unique and appropriate solutions which are going to benefit not just me but population at large. Industry or an organization is a community of workforce who develop solutions, products, and they deliver them. Workspaces are the ecosystem or the physical space where this industry functions. Lifestyle and career are aspirations, which are reflections of a social community. And living is my biological existence, which is essential to me. Now, the next four slides are going to speak about what the trends were looking like just before COVID-19 happened. So, in colleges and institutions, there was a lot of emphasis on project based learning, outcome based education, internships, sometimes multiple in every year of engineering, was important as a fulfillment of the degree. A lot of focus on technical contest participations and paper publications. Students were augmenting their degree with some short duration courses, which was helping them get a better career option in industry. Some students chose to do masters. Most of them went towards doctorates and research specializations. And then there was another category of students who had started doing a lot of startup projects by starting with ideation. Similarly, if we look at engineering industry, the trends were pretty much what we all know. There was always a learning and development center in any industry, which was looking to skill the incoming workforce as well as reskill their existing workforce or employees. Lot of repetitive tasks or sometimes very spatial skill task was outsourced. Most of the research and innovation was done within the industry themselves. Typically, industries were competing to succeed and to grow further in their business. And then there was a lot of university college associations, which was helping them to get the best interns and to have good placements. Coming to lifestyle, higher education was seen as a mark of successful and stable future. Typically, a job with an MNC was seen with a lot of pride. Global movement was more lucrative and satisfying. Aggressive working culture had developed where everything was based on competition, whether it is salary hike or their technical growth. Most of us were just socially networking with people who were our workplace friends and not really outside of my area of work. I was very happy to have a bigger home and big cars because that reflected I have achieved something. And outdoors and travels were reflecting a mark of a very happy life and home. Now that we have covered in education and industry, let's also see how economy looked just before COVID. We were already struggling with a high unemployment rate. Mostly the markets were governed by consumerism. So the idea was that exchange value of a currency with respect to other country currencies was dominating the actual use value. Most of us were living life which was led on credits and insurance. We had a much wider and a global network, although we may be much less social in terms of how deep we go into our relationships. And most of us were very okay and cool to take risk and live our life on edge. So these four slides are just reflecting how things were just about 4 months ago. Now, the next few slides are going to take one by one an insight into how things are going to look like in the immediate term and then in the long term. So on the left, if you see, we are talking about institutional system, which is nothing but a place of learning. On the left, what we see is something which we are already experiencing in the last 4 to 6 weeks in India. We have done exactly this, what you see. We have used synchronous platforms, and a lot of learning is going on through those synchronous platforms. And there's a lot of database and content which is being developed on asynchronous platforms. So blended teaching and learning is increasing, and it has risen sharply. Now, eventually, this is going to become a virtual teaching and learning where most of the content will become available and will be pushed online. And once people start coming back to their colleges and classrooms, that time is going to become more of a discussion or a chat room. So the classroom is likely to get converted into a chat room place where a lot of discussion and brainstorming and problem solving will be done. The teachers will be facilitators and mentors to that. I see that as a very positive and a very efficient and effective sign. So, which means that online education will become a strategic priority, and the university systems will begin to open up. So not every university will have its simple, very classified and qualified within themselves kind of education. But however, a student will have an option to learn several courses through several means available to him through internet, through online content. The best of the online content will finally survive, which is good because over multiple courses, we will always have the best of the content coming in from the most learned people, which helps a student learn things on his own. And once that happens, a student can choose to take assessment and eventually certifications by these colleges and universities, which it is associated with. This is all going to become more and more global, and nothing of this can happen unless colleges and universities start to collaborate among themselves. So the idea is that let the best of the content come forward, let the best of assessment come forward, and a student will be known more by how well he learns, what he learns, and how well he finishes the assessment. An assessment and grading system will become more and more a mark of what he has learned and less a reflection of what kind of a college or a university he's studying in. So if this is more or less clear, let's move towards how the educational tools will look like. So this education that we're talking about is not generally restricted only to primary and senior secondary schools. Rather, it's going to make its way into engineering first. Most of the learning is going to be immersive learning. These things that I'm saying are not just going to happen, they have already started to happen. A lot of places, when we see, have adopted immersive learning as their method to educate children, and also engineering colleges. In India, right now, I know at least two universities which have successfully deployed AR VR based learning. And this was done with the help of Facebook School of Innovation. There have been two batches of engineering students who have adopted these courses and then gone forward with their regular engineering degree credit courses as well, apart from these courses which are given to them through Facebook. So this is a reality, this is not an imagination, and this is already happening. What we see now is that this is going to ramp up pretty fast. And a college which adopts these measures faster without sacrificing or compromising on the quality of the content is going to lead and show the way to the rest of the colleges or the country. It's obvious that this current generation likes gamification. So, I mean, the best way to have something embedded inside the brains is through gamification. I can spend hours of lecture, but the most impact will come if I transform my learning into a gamified gamified method, or if that pedagogy is adopted. So this is how most of the soft skills and technical skills are going to be imparted to the new generation. Are you able to see the screen at the bottom? Okay. So now with this learning being taken care of through gamification, through immersive learning, through a lot of online good quality content, what is more important for any engineering student, or for that matter any student in any domain, is some of these skills. Now you notice the top four skills are nothing new. We've already been talking about them for the last 3 to 5 years. We need better communication skills, but we need communication skills of the higher order now, and I'll just explain what that means. The communication that we had been talking about till now was face-to-face communication, where a person can see the other person, and you not only hear what they say, but you also observe how they say. However, we are quickly moving towards an online or a remote communication, which means you cannot see what the other person is feeling, or how his response system is looking like. So this communication means we should be able to understand beyond our regular senses can show us, and that needs sharpening. And if you wonder how it's going to happen, it's a very simple game of practice and practice till you succeed, because the situation has become like we are all forced into this, and there is no way for us but to emerge stronger each day. So we are going to be learning because of the situation that we are put into. And critical thinking, yes, just the way we've always been doing. Since we are engineers, we have to be troubleshooters and problem solvers, and also entrepreneurial. But the three key skills which are going to make the difference, make or break, number one is ability to learn independently. So the more and more we understand this and practice this from as early as a school system, a primary school system, the better off the new generation is going to look like. The second is the ability to deal with complexity and ambiguity. Now, this is exactly what coronavirus has put each one of us into. There have been industries which were actually making a machine for automobiles, which overnight decided to use their uh, uh, inventory to develop ventilators or parts for ventilators. Now, this is how you learn to deal with situations that are put in front of you, and that's what matters. And we have to create engineers who can do that, who can actually think and bring solutions to the forefront. Another key thing is interdisciplinary, not just among the branches of engineering, but beyond that. So if you notice, most of this problem, which actually looks like a medical health problem, is right now being attacked by by a force of people from engineering to administration to communication experts to entertainment experts. And that's where we see that interdisciplinary means something altogether different, where we are able to bring all forces together to solve a big global problem. Now, having said that, let's look at a flash of how Industry 4.x And I am calling it X because this is not just 4.0 the way we knew 4 months ago. So X here means what coronavirus or this pandemic has done or changed about it. So five main things if you notice. In technologies, yes, we will see more and more strongly embedded digital structure. We will see more and more of man and machine interfaces. We will see more and more of automated industries and systems. And we will see a big chunk of robotic operations suddenly coming up. The people who are going to work on these technologies are what we call the new millennial workforce. These people are going to be fighters because they have no other choice. I mean, we are not giving them anything served on a platter. So they will have stronger attitudes. They will develop better ways of working. They will have much stronger interpersonal skills, which they will learn hard way, but through the situation that they are forced to be into. We will have better behavior, which is going to be governed heavily by the digital social as is happening right now. If we see this seminar, this webinar is actually something that could have happened as a seminar, but right now it's going live and we are connecting with people wherever they are and however they are. And once we create this, the system is going to be done by the design of it itself rather than something that we are going to be changing it into. That also means that we will have more and more nimble and responsive set of behavior coming out. I mean, the faster you are in terms of how you respond, the better there are chances of you to succeed. So this is an ability which is going to make you stand out. Now, already we see mobility and flexibility. It's already happening. A lot of people, wherever it is possible, started working from home. That was one way to call mobility. The other way to call mobility is what we see. I mean, there is somebody who's developing a vaccine right now in one corner of the world. There's another person who's developing a vaccine in another corner of the world, and they're all able to communicate with each other their findings. So that's globalization. That's no competition, but rather collaboration. So if we see we are becoming more and more united in terms of the solutions that we bring forth, an engineer is doing just that. So we are going to have more and more of collaborative ways of living rather than competing and keeping my trade secret to myself. Now, this is a very interesting finding I read somewhere through Shakespeare. It says, misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellow. That's like, when you're in a very tight situation, something that you didn't plan for yourself, you actually end up being with, strangers altogether. And this is also reflecting that most innovative solutions are arising in the greatest constraints that we see similar to what we are in today. Now, with that being said, what is going to be a new shape of workspace? Of course, I definitely say that for the current for the current range of engineers who are going to come out in the immediate year, for them the times are the toughest. There is no doubt about it, and there's nothing that can be said to make it sound, sugary or sweet. But the more you listen to this, you will understand that there is going to be an opportunity for this for this new league of engineers which will come out. These engineers are going to drive and define the organizational structure, the new structure. They are not going to become a submissive employee to an organization, but they are going to dictate the terms. So that's something that we need to understand why it will happen. Because we are going to be living in a time of telecommuting, and a lot of smart working which will be required. We will be living in a very fast-paced approach of product development. There will be only an emphasis on relevant innovation. All non-relevant data generation will be put aside. We will have to have very streamlined processes so that not only the current disruption, but the disruptions that we may see in the coming few months and maybe year are well handled, and there is a much faster response to that. And who's going to do all of this? The new brand of generation of engineers who are going to come out. The older ones can only provide the experience, but it's the new ones who are going to adopt to this much faster than many others. There will be a lot of emphasis on having simulated and emulated environment for workspace, which these new brand of generation of engineers will work on. Mostly I see, and this is just a prediction, not a projection, that the laboratories will be centralized. They will have more and more of automated system. Things will be enabled by robotic systems, and there will be a strong human machine interface active 24/7. And this will be combined and coupled with engineers who will be working from wherever they are. They could be working from home. So when I say strong home working practice, home here means anything. It could be a field, it could be a mountain, it could be a beach. So these people, these human resources are going to be interacting with these machines, which are going to be the new order or the new system. Now, between the human resources, there is a survey which was done by Gartner, and they define it as a near model. So, how a work culture for this workforce is going to look like in 4 words. One is normalizing self-direction, as I just said, that the new team is going to dictate the terms, and the managers are not just going to dictate what they have to do, but rather act as coaches. And they have to trust the team that is coming to them for all the work that they deliver. They will look at new relationships because the managers will not just define the work that needs to be done, but they will also facilitate communication between the teams which are going to be sitting remote, who have not shared jokes across the coffee table during the office times. So there has to be a different way of connecting these multiple teams together, which is where the managers are going to be seated in between. And they have to become better at observing the signs of distress, if there are any. The managers will have to accentuate the positive for these teams, because anything that I do, unless it is backed by real fact, real evidences, unless it is properly defined to me before the work is done and after the work is delivered, it is not going to help. So the managers are going to move towards, corrective feedbacks which are strongly backed by evidences and not just assumptions. And then they also have to revamp their team expectations in terms of what is expected out of an individual and what is a team or a group or a project expectation with respect to the outputs that come in. So the new near model is going to find its space, which means, if you notice, more and more structured workspace, which will be defined and directed by the new engineers and helped and facilitated by the existing managers. That's how I kind of sum up the last 2 slides. Now, all of that definitely sounds positive, but then there are going to be new challenges, and these are just few that I have listed. The list of challenges is going to be way longer. The first problem that I foresee is optimizing the resources. Now, we keep things centralized because that's the most optimum way of having a resource and maintaining it and keeping it operational. Now, here all the long we are talking about literally decentralizing, which means everybody working from their spaces and everybody utilizing resources, everybody having their own set of resources. So how do we make sure that there is no wastage and there is no duplicacy? So that is one challenge which we are faced with. The second most important is engaging these students and employees when they are coming on a virtual platform. So right now, if I'm talking, how do I know that I'm actually engaging all 400, 500 minutes? And once I hear somebody. The second most important is engaging the students and employees when they are coming on a virtual platform. Here my I think somebody is actually engaging all 400, 500 days. Could you please turn it off? Once I hear somebody engaging the students and employees when they are coming on a virtual platform. Mic is on. Could you please turn it off? Yeah, thank you. So this is a very good interruption at the right time when I'm talking about engaging learners, and this is a very timely interruption where we see how we control and how we make sure that the people on the other end are engaged to the learning that I'm delivering. Right. The third most important is the data veracity. I mean, everywhere we hear a lot of fake news was being transmitted now. Data veracity becomes most important stuff to deal with in organizations where the businesses and economy is working in crores, where the data could, a slight mistake in a data could lead to a disaster. uh, the data veracity becomes a very important thing to monitor and ensure. Comes along with it is the security and the confidentiality of the data. The next is the failures of the systems, because here we are heavily depending on the system which is connecting point A to point B. Any issues here in terms of synchronizations or failures, we can stand to see a big loss in organizational structure, and that's something that will require a lot of work and streamlining to achieve. And there will be new problems emerging every time we feel that we have a good system working. We will always be faced with newer challenges. On the behavioral side, we will not be able to control the productivity and the efficiency because we are not standing face to face with my employee or with my learner or with my student. So how do I understand what is distracting him from learning? How do I know how to bring him back is going to be one big challenge for most educators and managers and employers. And then, of course, not really anyway the least, the cyberbullying, the cybercrime, and handling conflicts between team members who are sitting in remote places, but then they are working together on the same project. So these are some of the few challenges which I've listed. They all need to be worked upon. It will take some time before we get to a very satisfying level of accomplishment with these. So if I have to sum up, how the economy in the new world is going to look like, these are some of the questions. This is not a projection. This is something of a thought-provoking system that I'm going to leave all of you with. When I say and keep your own
Live streaming is on.
sync. Now, gig freelancing versus secure employment is again in the light of the current economy. We see a lot of big organizations also laying off people in big numbers. There were smaller organizations which are hard pressed for money. How are they going to survive with so many salaries? These are all questions to see. But what I see is somewhere a more focused trend
Is
towards
on.
gig or freelancing, and something which I myself am doing after spending 17 years in a salaried job. I moved to freelancing where I am doing what I can do, multiple organizations. So rather than delivering one service associated with one organization, I'm offering what I can offer to multiple colleges, multiple agencies or bodies based on how much time I have and how much I wish to engage. It also points us to how much money do I need? Do I need money just to survive, or do I need money for a better lifestyle? how is the new government role going to be? Whether the government will come and protect people by giving them free access to social needs like education and health and food, while the non-essential stuff can be taken care of by the people themselves. Again, this is a question. Whether a person will only earn for the non-essentials while he gets everything free from the government when it comes to his essential health, again, it's a question to think about. So this is very different from the economy that we have been seeing for the last 50, 70, 80 years, where we work to earn and then we define our lifestyle and our living. So you have to see, and I mean, engineers are not away from any of this. This is very much a reality for engineers to understand and also to grow themselves into, which means that at any point of time, we have to be prepared to have multiple careers, or we can have an early retirement, which then pushes us more into, a gig or a freelancing kind of a time the rest of my life. Now, industries will definitely see and perceive all of this, and more industries are going to be embedded inside community interest, and they will be reshaped and redefining their own vision and mission statements so that they are not standing against community but with the community. Now, with all of this said and done, the main person in this whole thing is the human being. What we have seen in the last few weeks is that my health is not just my health alone, but it's the health of the rest of the community, and I am only as safe as the safety of the other people. So there is a redefining of how the health is perceived. And similarly, we understand that if human being is in the key, is in the center of everything that's being restructured into, whether it's economy, whether it's engineering, whether it's colleges and institutions and of learning, then the better our immunity is, the better we are going to face the rest of the times which we are which we are looking into. Now, this brings me to explain that this is a new order. This is a very hopeful slide. I mean, this is like, rise of phoenix from ashes, or the forest wildlife that happened in Australia just few months ago. If some of you followed, you see the new sprouts and shoots have come out into those the forests in Australia. The life has resurfaced. So similarly, with all this that's going on around us, there's going to be a resurgence of a new normal or a new life. We will have professors becoming educators more and mentors more. We will have engineers who will be actually more of architects of the new world. And we will have doctors who will actually become more of health physicians, I mean, which people who not only treat an individual, but who look after the health of the society in general. We have already seen in the past explorers which actually became historians. We are now looking at a time of farmers becoming agriculturists, or people actually turning into agriculture as a serious career. We have seen discoverers becoming research scientists and bringing back a lot of their findings for the betterment of society. We have seen the times when there used to be traders who eventually turned into business owners. So the idea with this slide here, I'm trying to tell all of you engineering students, is that you are the architect of the new world which is emerging post-COVID. The success or failure of this new normal or the new world is totally dependent upon how you perceive, how you react and respond, and how you craft the times ahead. So it's really in your hands to do what you can with respect to how the new industries, how the new development, how the new solutions are going to look like. So if this is my summary slide where I'm going to just say what are the things which are looking towards a rising trend. So we see a lot of rising trend in data science, in artificial intelligence, and IoT enabled systems. We cannot, I mean, we have been talking about this for the last 5 to 7 years, but we now know that this is going to be a real reality much sooner than we anticipated few months ago. We will have more of robotics, mechatronics, and industrial automation being established at a much rapid pace. The software and IT, which was actually looking at a dip, is going to shoot up like anything exponentially. Computing sciences is going to again rise to its peak because of increased human machine interface that is required. Extended reality, VR, AR are going to be the the regular, the default mechanisms embedded into our day-to-day life. The 3D technologies is going to make its way inside our homes. Our entertainment and vacation is actually going to become 5D and 8D. So whether I go to Paris or whether I sit here in the comfort of my house and experience what being on the top of Eiffel Towers means like, is going to be like that, right? So I need not really do a air travel. All I need to do is just experience the 8D of how an Eiffel Tower, looks like. The learning will be gamified. I've already spoken. A new type of minimalism will emerge. We have been using the resources available to us without being mindful of what we were doing with it. This new generation and this new order has already taught us to value what we get and how to use it. And gig economy is something that I foresee coming up much faster than I earlier believed, wherein more and more of you will care about being employed by an organization. Rather, you will run your own course of selling your talents to multiple organizations and needs at your own term and at your own pace. So if I close my sentence, I'll say scientists will be found on beaches. You could very much be running a simulation while sunbathing with your family on a beach. So, my friends, I would like to get some feedback from you as to how do you feel right now. And you can use the chat option on the screen. And if you feel hopeful, fearful, confused, or none of this, please type in the letter accordingly. And then also type in the number if my seminar helped you or it didn't, or it helped you a little bit, but you're not very sure how much it did. So I would be happy to see how much of this last 1 hour of engagement has been useful to you or not by way of collecting this data through you. These are the references, some of the references which I used to do my research and to be able to present to you. And that's me. Any questions? Or did I lull everybody to sleep? Looks like everybody went into sleep. Hello, knock knock, anybody there?
Oh, yeah.
This is very much like everybody keeps the screen on and then goes away and does this and that. Okay, time to wake up. Ta-da! Webinar is over.
Yeah. So I have one specific question
Yes, please.
posed by one of the faculty members. Are there some specific products that have come out of this pandemic situation?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the first that we all know is those ventilators. And there have been not one but many designs of ventilators done in different places. And if our engineering students would notice, they have actually come out of engineering colleges and not medical colleges. So while the doctors were busy treating the patients, students in IITs and other colleges were busy preparing various ways of ventilators that could be utilized once we reach that situation.
Okay. So, I mean, whatever questions you have posed, definitely we'll get some feedback from it. And I think the chat is also going on. I'm sure you are able to see the chat.
Let me see.
Yeah, nice statements, nice session. Most of them are saying it was fantastic.
I I still don't see, actually. No, I can't see those messages. So if there are any questions or responses, I cannot see them. No, I can't see them.
Okay, I'll just have a word with him.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Sampada. This is Vishwas. There's a question posed by someone on YouTube, and of course, he wanted to know something more about entrepreneurship. And what more is not clear. But the more there are quite a few questions on YouTube, I'll check and revert back on that.
Okay. So, I mean, is there an answer expected? Could you read out the question so that I know exactly what they're asking?
Kurunkar sir, if you could read out the question.
Tell me something more about post-COVID entrepreneurship.
Okay. Now, this is a question coming from a student.
Question coming from Aniket Borse. Um, I don't know. Is he a student?
Okay. Okay. So, a short answer, because the question can be further elaborated, but a short answer would be that once we are faced with a challenge, that's what stimulates ourselves into thinking of solutions to help. The challenge which is standing in front of us. We rack our brains to come up with ideas to solve it.
Sorry.
And that's where the first seed of entrepreneurship lies, to be able to see the challenge and then to start thinking of possible solutions, and not one, but maybe 20 or 100 solutions. And that's where the entrepreneurship starts to take shape, from going into ideation to actually giving a face to the solutions that we are considering or thinking and testing them. So yes, for entrepreneurship post COVID, there is going to be a lot of opportunity, because many things which we had done till now, in a way, cannot be done anymore. So, for example, Arogya Setu app was not needed. COVID pushed us to develop this app, and when it was developed during the lockdown, when it was being forced on people to to launch this app and to put the data in it, some people just did it because it was coming from a government. Some people were questioning why they should do, because it is collecting a lot of data. Some people felt, how does it matter whether I put the information in Arogya Setu or not? But an entrepreneur can see the relevance of this app way beyond, because once the lockdown open and we start moving about, now if I go into a public place, I can use this app to see how much at risk I am, right? So I'm not promoting Arogya Setu app here, but what I'm trying to put in focus is that there were certain things which were just not existent before, but now, considering a pandemic has happened and my safety and everybody else's safety is a concern, I may start thinking of solutions which bring that safety forward, right? People are thinking of apps which can tell whether a person is wearing the mask correctly or not. Now, these are all software entrepreneurship solutions. Similarly, as I said about ventilators, there are only certain number of ventilators available. Or for instance, somebody feels that a testing kit could be developed, and they, from IIT Delhi, these students, they felt that they could develop this testing kit which could do a rapid testing. So this is how entrepreneurship takes shape. And this is a new world order. So it's like, you're given a plot of land and you have all the freedom to craft the architecture of the house that you want to make. So entrepreneurship right now is going to see a big rise with new solutions emerging. I hope I answered.
Yeah, there's another question,
Please.
ma'am. Yeah,
Yeah,
academically knowing
continue.
you, could you name those two universities who have done work in AR and VR? It could be helpful for us.
I can actually connect you to the team which is catalyzing these courses. And
Okay.
I don't know if I have the leverage to name out those universities right now. I
Okay.
don't know really if I can name them. I don't know. Maybe it is okay. Maybe it is not. But I can definitely connect you to the people who took associations with Facebook School of Innovation and then adopted these courses, and now it has already tested. I've attended their workshop a few months ago last year, and we saw students and what they did and their output. So it's commendable. So please write to me, and I will definitely connect you with them.
Yeah, surely. I'll do that. There's one more question from head of our civil engineering department, Ms. Rashmita. How are we going to fill this gap of pre and post COVID in academics in short time?
Mhm. So are we talking about the curriculum coverage, or projects and experiments which are hands-on inside labs? Could you specify further if you know?
Yeah, the academic gap that has,
So in general, it includes learning as well as labs and experiments, everything, right? I take it as a general gap, right?
yes, general gap.
Okay. So definitely this dip and gap is going to be. I mean, there is no way we can trace back in the time to say that we did not lose those weeks or months. But the best thing that we have all demonstrated is that we immediately adopted these online measures using the synchronous platforms, and not just one but many platforms that were available to us. I mean, we literally, everybody worked like a warrior, where faculties suddenly started developing a lot of notes which they could relay during the online classroom teachings. So yes, the dip was there, the gap will be there. There is no way you can fix it by going back in time. But what I understand and see is that the response has been very fast, very quick, and a lot of this online classroom is already operational. It's only a matter of time before we also demonstrate how the lab work can be done. And of course, right now, as we speak, I know of one agency who has developed online experiments which a student can do with the resources which are available to them at home before the colleges actually open up, and they can come back to the laboratories and then verify and validate their research, the results of their experiments. So it is forcing people to think of creative ideas and simulating their experiments, so that then while they are still at home, they can use the online tools to achieve, if not 100%, but 70 to 80% of their learning output through that. So yeah, so I mean, this year is going to be like this. It's going to be different. It's not the examinations may not happen at the predefined time, but and you may actually have to redefine how you did assessments. There are right now as I speak, and I can offline I can connect you with people who are developing online assessment methods so that the examinations can still continue on time. And the people are working on different ways to minimize the damage which you see.
Yeah.
Sachin sir, can I add one question here?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Vishwas.
please, sir. Please. Yes,
Yeah,
please,
there
sir.
is a question from Shubhendra Bandar. What Bandra? I'm sorry if I pronouncing the name wrong. The question is more on opportunity of learning. Sampadaji, the question is online learning is fine. Maybe we will be able to adopt that. But what happens on skill based thing under the change circumstances? The hands-on skill that is made in this, doing things by hand. How do we fill up this gap?
Absolutely. So this is the biggest hit which is currently visible in all, learning industry everywhere, not just in India but in all parts of the world, which is where the VR and the XR, the extended reality, comes to the rescue. So wherever, so of course, I mean, if it is not available in your college right now, you have already missed it. But then this is the time to adopt VR to take the hands-on experiments to a next level. I mean, this is literally like somebody is forcing you that since there is no air left to breathe, so you have no choice but to do this. uh, the universities which are going to adopt these mechanisms are going to succeed. AR and extended reality is the answer to such scenarios. It doesn't take too long to adopt. I mean, if 4 weeks are dedicated towards it, the content is already available. Multiple colleges and students can come together and start developing the content for VR and XR, and they can start deploying it by the end of September. So this is not going to run its regular schedule time, but it will happen within this academic year if people join together and start working to, in collaboration. And that's an answer. That's a permanent answer. That's not a stopgap to doing hands-on. That's going to be the long-going order of the way of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Sampida. There's one more question from Professor Abhilasha Mishra. She has expressed her concern about uh, the experiences. There are less jobs for electronics engineers these days. What would be the situation post COVID in the job market for electronics engineer? Would it be will there be any improvement or what?
So yes, jobs were anyway much lesser before COVID. Also, we were suffering with unemployment issues. But right now, the entire world is hit by the job scenario. So this year is not going to be easy. The next year is definitely not going to be easy. When I say not going to be easy, which means that there will be more and more unemployed people and engineering students who are coming out this year, finding it difficult to get a job. But these 2 3 years, if we see it in a much larger picture and not just focus ourselves to 2020, if we see the next 3 to 4 years, uh, that is exactly what I said in the last few slides also, that these new engineers are going to craft new ways of enterprise. They will redefine economy for the world in a very different shape. They may not get an employment offer through an organization, but they will be able to develop solutions which they will sell to bigger organizations. And that's how they are going to ramp up a new economic system. And that's how the new industry system is going to, flourish all over again in 3 to 5 years from now. So yes, the next 2 to 3 years are going to be like a renovation and a rebuilding time, where these new people are going to play a key role in the formation of that. This is a community time. We have to. We cannot say that we just need the engineers. It's a community time. I mean, everybody has to do their bit to come together and collaborate and then make a new system function.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sachin sir, do you have time for any more questions or we conclude?
Yeah, one last question, and I'll sum up and propose the vote of thanks. Is it fine, Kurunkar sir?
Yeah, that should be fine. I mean, that's what I thought. This
Yeah.
question from Vishal Anasi that he's asking for whether would it require special skills at workplace post-COVID situation.
Yes. So if I bring back the slide which talks about the skills which are going to define, I'm going to screen share again. Um, if the person is looking at the screen, they will notice the. So these are the skills which will thrive, especially the three on the lower side, which are written in bold. People who can learn independently, and here learning not only means what we do in colleges, but uh, anything that we have to do and deliver. And if we need, if we need to ramp up our skills for that, the ability to do it on our own, the ability to deal, and it's a very subjective term. If I say that you become more able to deal with complexity, and the student will say, how? What do you mean by saying this? How do I become able to deal with complexity? What is ambiguity? It is ambiguous to say that. So yes, I do agree that it's very difficult to develop this ability. But then when we incorporate our courses in a manner where we bring in assignments which force us to go beyond what is provided to us, when we are put into a situation where there is no solution available, but we have to think of a solution, that's when, repeatedly by being forced into such system, we prepare our engineers to realize and to deal with the situation later on in the life. So this is a very strong task for an institution and educators, all of them out there, that they have to prepare, not to don't just focus on developing the online content, but focus more on how do you give them the assignments to solve, right? How much of problem solving are you pushing them into? How much of vague problems or situations you are forcing them to think on? The more they practice, the better their abilities will be. And the third thing that we have to do is to allow them to interact with not only their own science domain, but they have to see beyond engineering. An engineering solution will come from engineers, but the idea has to be validated with everything that is around us, right? Because the solution is not for an engineer or a doctor, it is for a society, it is a community. So the more and more we give them the opportunity to do things in a group, the better that ability develops. And that's what we have to focus on while they are still in engineering.
Okay, perhaps that was the last question, ma'am. So thank you. And as you mentioned in your slide, human is the key. That was a very nice slide that caught my attention. And definitely, the only way to manage change is to become good at managing the unexpected. If I could say, this could be one of the black swan events. If you have heard about black swan event, this pandemic is one of the black swan events our humanity has faced, and maybe we don't know. There could be many more to come, and we have to be prepared to face uncertainties and ambiguities in our life. You also mentioned somewhere in your slide. So definitely, thank you very much for giving valuable insights, for preparing us to the post-COVID engineering education system, and it was a pleasure to have you amongst us. And to brief you, we had around 480 registrations from across the state of Maharashtra. So that was a tremendous response. Thank you, ma'am. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for giving this opportunity to engage. Thank you.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope it helped. I would like to hear back some
Yeah.
feedback from you, sir, and also from students by way of their answers on the question. If this was an effective talk, if they were able to feel relieved and energized, if it answered some of their queries and anxieties, I would want to hear, and how I could have done it differently. That feedback also would be very valuable to me. So please,
Yes, sure, sure,
doing
sure.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.
ठीक है.